In this video, I'm gonna break down fat loss into its simplest form, and here's how. So what you need to understand about fat loss is that it's calories in versus calories out. If you consume too many calories, you gain body fat. You consume too little calories, you lose body fat. And if you're consuming the same amount as what you're burning, you are going to sustain body weight. What you need to understand is that regardless of whether it's protein, carbs, or fats, if you consume too many calories, it will be stored as body fat, regardless of where those calories come from. Now, it's worth noting there's benefits to protein, carbs, and fats. Each have their own benefits and purposes, but let's not focus on that for a moment. A lot of you are still gonna be skeptical at this point, but let's just look at some facts. Let's use our dog for an example. When our dog begins to gain too much weight, what do we do to put it on a diet? We restrict how much food they consume. And what happens as a result of that? They begin to lose weight. Now, some people will argue that our biology isn't the same as an animal's, but when it comes to weight gain and weight loss, it's the exact same. That's why all animals have to eat in order to sustain or gain weight. And that's why if you underfeed an animal, regardless of what it is, it will begin to lose weight and eventually die if you continue to restrict its caloric intake. But let's bring it back to humans because people still want to argue the point. They'll say it's stress stopping them from losing weight, and we're going to jump into that in a moment. But let's just look at prisoners of war for a moment. So it's quite well known, prisoners of war do not get fed well. And when we look at photos from people that have been in concentration camps and have been fed insufficient calories for months on end, what are they? They are skinny, they're anorexic, they have a lack of body fat. And this lack of body fat is from months and months, perhaps even years of restricted calories. They've lost all their body fat because our body is storing body fat to be used at a later time for energy to actually stop us from dying, i.e. when we're being put in these concentration camps and severely reduced with the amount of calories we can eat. And a lot of these people end up dying from malnourishment because there's no extra body fat on their body to help sustain and fuel them to keep them alive. This brings me to my next point with stress, because a lot of people say that stress is stopping them from losing weight. I think it's pretty clear that prisoners of war would be the most stressed out people on the planet, being held captive against their will and quite honestly, innocently. A bit different to being incarcerated for something you've probably done that put you behind bars. So these people who are also chronically stressed and also underfed are continuing to lose weight even though they have elevated cortisol 24/7. So it should be pretty clear to you now at this point that your elevated cortisol, because you're stressed from work or from day-to-day life, from your partner, from your kids, isn't going to be on the same level as someone being held captive. And that's because stress, which the chemical is cortisol, so having high cortisol, isn't stopping you from losing weight or holding onto body fat. It's just that how we respond to that high stress or that high cortisol is what causes us to gain or hold onto our weight. Because a lot of time when we are stressed, we actually begin to eat more, or we also begin to move less. And sometimes a combination of moving less and eating more, which is why you gain weight. When it comes to fat loss, you have to look at this from a science perspective, not from your feelings and emotions. When you look at this viewed a lens of feelings and emotions, it's going to cause you to make poor decisions. And when you look at this logically, and when you look at biology, and when you look at how we evolved, this all makes perfect sense. You go back thousands of years ago when we couldn't just go to the refrigerator or go to the pantry to pull out food, when we were out on the plains hunting animals and sometimes going even days without food. It makes sense for our bodies to adapt to store body fat, because then when it comes to times of famine, our body can then pull from these stores of body fat. Now, in today's world, where we can just head to the pantry, head to the refrigerator, go through Macca's drive-through to get food, to get a bolus of calories, it's quite easy for us to gain weight, and we then don't have a lot of potential to lose that body fat. Whereas again, back in the day, we're out in the plains and we might be moving for a couple of days trying to chase down an animal to kill and eat versus going to the pantry, going through McDonald's drive-through. We've got thousands of calories coming in, but not thousands of calories going out, which is why we begin to store body fat. So in this day and age, we actually have to stop ourselves from overeating. We actually have to restrict the amount we're eating. We have to reduce our calories. On top of that, food today is a lot more palatable and a lot more calorie dense, bite for bite or gram for gram, compared to if you just eat predominantly or all unprocessed natural occurring food. So just think meat and plants, legumes, grains, all of that good stuff. Anything you would naturally find out in nature is being minimally to no processed. And prior to the Middle Ages, we didn't even really see many overweight people because food was so hard to come by, it was so hard to store, and we hadn't sort of really invented any sort of mechanism to create highly palatable foods, or just in terms of farming and agriculture to have such a bolus of food where one could become fat. And actually going back, even to the Middle Ages, if someone was overweight, it was actually a sign of wealth and it was highly sought after and people were more desirable for that because it showed they had access to a surplus of food, they weren't starving, they weren't going without, and that actually made them a suitable mate compared to today, everyone has access to a surplus of calories. Anyone can be overweight, and we're living in a society where more people are overweight versus not. So now you understand it's calories in versus calories out. Now, as a rough rule of thumb for women, you're looking at around 1600 calories a day to lose weight. Men, this can be anywhere from 1800 to 2200 calories per day. Honestly, it's going to depend on the size of you. So how tall are you, how much muscle mass do you carry, and how much are you moving day to day. Doesn't mean you have to work out every single day, but if you have a highly active job, you're going to be spending thousands more calories compared to someone who has an inactive sedentary job where they're sat at a desk the entire day. There's no one set number. What you have to do is you have to track your calories for a few weeks to see what is working for you when it comes to weight loss. Do you need 1500 calories? Maybe you're a woman who needs 1700 calories. Maybe 1800 calories for men is way too little and you're starving, and maybe you need 2200 calories. So there's no one set number. These are just guides, and you have to figure out what works best for yourself. The second thing you need to do is you need to learn to track. You need to buy yourself a set of kitchen scales and learn to use MyFitnessPal. In fact, at the end of this video, there'll be another video to show you how to use MyFitnessPal to log all your meals. The reason this is so important is because when they've done studies on people to see how many calories they think they're consuming each day, most people are underestimating by 50%. If they think they're eating 1500 calories a day, it ends up being more like 2,500 calories a day that they're actually consuming, and that's why they're not losing weight. You get your kitchen scale, you learn to use MyFitnessPal, you can accurately gauge exactly how many calories you are consuming, and then you can track that. And then if you aren't losing weight, then you know you need to reduce calories more. And if you're losing weight too fast, you can actually increase calories. And now there is no guesswork involved. And using hard data and facts, you can completely control how fast or how slow you gain and lose weight. Now let's bring macros back into play. So you've got protein, carbs, and fats. What you need to understand about each of these is that protein is 4 calories per 1 gram, carbs is also 4 calories per 1 gram, and fat is 9 calories per 1 gram. This doesn't make fat bad, it just means it has more calories per gram than carbs and fats. Now, protein and fats are actually essential for our survival. We have what's called essential amino acids and essential fatty acids. We actually don't have to consume carbohydrates, however, it is our body's preferred source of fuel. So if you've heard of the ketogenic diet, you like the ketogenic diet, it's no biggie to follow that. However, in saying that, through evolution, we actually have adapted to eat carbohydrates. So it's not something we really recommend for the majority of people to follow a ketogenic diet. Because what you need to understand, if you decide to cut out all carbohydrates, that means no more alcohol, that means no more bread, that means no more lollies. Whereas with a well-balanced diet, incorporating protein, carbs, and fats, and just learning to track your calories, you can consume any and all foods in moderation. And this is where most people go wrong when it comes to fat loss. They're too busy trying to cut out entire food groups, whether it be carbs, whether it be fats, or just saying, I'm never gonna drink again, or I'm never gonna eat bread again, or I'm never gonna eat lollies again. In our modern world, it's completely unrealistic to say, I'm never gonna eat this again, I'm never going to eat that again. Instead, what you need to be saying is, I'm going to eat all foods in moderation. And in times of when I'm trying to lose weight, maybe you consume less of those foods because it's very easy to overeat. And in times when you're just trying to sustain weight, you get to enjoy more of those foods. And this is where it comes down to the individual, because some people when they diet experience severe hunger and they're going to need to consume less of these foods because they're quite calorie dense, whereas other people don't get as bad of hunger cravings and can consume more of these foods still within their caloric limit for fat loss, but not have the problems associated with binging and hunger cravings and things like that. Because if you're someone who knows they're going to open the bottle and not stop until the bottle's empty, then you're going to easily overconsume on calories. Same deal when it comes to chocolate. It's quite easy to incorporate a quarter block of chocolate into your diet, but if you open up that block of chocolate and you're going to eat the entire block, well, it's probably not going to serve you very well to try and incorporate chocolate into your diet while you're actively trying to lose weight. Now, there's a time and place for it. Maybe you've had a really good few weeks, you've lost 4 or 5 kilos and you want to treat yourself, and that reward is a block of chocolate. That is completely fine. You just need to understand maybe that particular day you aren't going to be in a deficit and losing weight, and you come back to maintenance for that day. It's not going to undo all that hard work that you've just achieved. The problem is, for a lot of people, they eat one thing off plan, one thing they deem not healthy. They say F it, they throw everything they've been doing out the window and then resort back to old eating habits, not tracking, not following anything, just eating all the foods they want in as much quantity as they want, and then they put all of that weight back on. So if you want to learn how to use MyFitnessPal to track all your meals and calories, I recommend clicking somewhere down here and I'll teach you exactly how to do so.